Good morning.
Good morning.
I turned it down, okay? You can turn it on a little bit, not as bright, okay?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's Amy.
Hi, good morning. Did you guys get a notice that the water company has to come in and change your meters or something?
No,
Oh, I got a notice and they said, oh, you have to call us within 48 hours. So I sent them an email, told them to come today between 9:30 and 11:30, but they haven't emailed me back. So I'm waiting to see if they're gonna come. I don't know what they're doing.
no.
But I got two notices. One notice that says, this is your second notice. You have to respond within 48 hours. I don't know.
You sure it's not a scam?
I'll show you the notices.
We trust you, Amy.
Or you shouldn't keep. Hello.
How you doing, Heather?
Okay, how are you?
Good.
Looks official.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amy, what's the big deal? Is shut off your water? You know,
Mhm.
at least you'll have food.
They haven't yet. So they just sent me these
I would
important
if I were
notices.
them.
Urgent request, please read. I called within 48 hours. Mass Installation Inc. is,
Amy,
so I called them. They haven't called me back.
Believe you.
They're supposed to come. We'll see.
I personally believe you.
We'll see if they come. They send me all of these notices, green and yellow. I don't know. They sprang for colored paper. With my tax dollars.
Of course.
So I told them to come today, but then they didn't answer me. So maybe they'll come, maybe they won't.
Is your meter outside or inside?
What did they say? I don't know. It's the meter replay. I think my water meter's in the house.
Where's ours?
I'm not sure.
I don't think I've seen one outside, so it
Mhm.
must be inside someplace.
It's what they do is they drive by with the truck and somehow they have a computer that can read it from their truck.
Oh,
And they replaced it not that long ago. So I'm not sure why they want to do it again. I think they did it a couple of years ago. So, but they sent me this notice. It says you may go online to request an appointment time through the website. They'll contact you to confirm it. Well, I requested it. They didn't contact me. So we'll see.
you're covered.
But if you see strange people surveying or going around, they don't, the left hand and the right hand don't talk to
Right.
each other.
I
in
mean, the
this-
surveyors were right up against my house.
Yeah.
To get the street. I mean, like right by the windows. It was very.
And they still didn't know what they were doing, right?
No.
They didn't know why they were there. Nobody knows. They told us
Right,
to
but
come, so we're here.
Exactly. That's what he said to me. He said he wouldn't be surprised if it had something to do with Cottage Street, but he doesn't know.
Yeah. Oh, but so did you see the on Cottage Street, the person that has that, that gigantic 10-foot skeleton?
Yeah,
So the head came off. I said, that's even scarier. And now they put the head back on with the Santa hat.
yeah, I saw that. So I guess it's gonna stay up during December.
Yeah. Then maybe they'll give it some one of those, things that you blow,
Oh, for
and
New
a fun
Year's.
party hat for New Year's,
And then hearts for Valentine's Day.
at least.
And then shamrocks.
It's kind of hard to have a heart when you don't have a body, just a skeleton, but yeah,
He could have hearts all over him.
who knows? Can you imagine somebody climbing up on a ladder to put on the head?
Or the Christmas lights that he's holding.
Oh, yeah, well, we're crazy enough decorating the sukkah. I don't go in for that. And then they have all of these shows with the crazy, the light fight.
Oh,
I just hope the electricity doesn't go out. Now in Sharon, they want to celebrate. They put up some lights. They used to put a miniature tree with a couple of little menorahs next to it at the old police station. But then they wanted to be Yotze. They put 2 little red lights by the center of town. But what happened, people didn't realize they were Christmas decorations. They would stop. And then some young guys thought maybe it was the red light district. So they would also stop.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Amy, last week was just lovely.
Oh, thank you. How is George?
The numbers are going up in the right direction.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Thank you. Yeah. Everyone, are you recuperating your house back to normal?
My house, when I have company, it's the craziest thing. When people leave, my house is usually cleaner than before they came. I don't know, I
Because
have
you
this
cleaned
great
it
guest.
before.
Everybody cleaned up for me.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Your green beans were very appreciated. They were delicious.
Oh, good. Yeah, I enjoyed making them. We have them almost every Shabbos as a bit. Yeah. Did Rabbi Cheses say that we might be? Hello, Rabbi Cheses.
I'm sure he's coming. He always comes.
Yeah, here he is.
He's very good.
Good morning. I hope everyone had a moment to catch up a bit
Mhm.
and get acquainted. Fantastic. Well, top of the morning to you all, and I'm excited to continue our study of Rabbi Sax's Sefer, I believe, which has sort of loosely been related to Emunah in the Parsha, but more broadly has been about some of the core tenets of faith. And this week is no different, and is actually very connected to some of the, I would just say, current affairs in terms of the Jewish hatred that has appeared in our midst in current times, and sort of the response and the posture and the attitude towards it. So I'm going to share the sheet in the chat, and then also share it in the share screen as well. Give me a moment to bring it up here. Okay, here it is. Okay. Let's see. Share screen. Nope, that's not it. Okay. Can we see that on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna just scroll up a bit. Okay, so these parshiot are chock full with drama and intrigue, and the focus this week is going to be on the name change of Yaakov. And there are 3 questions that Rabbi Sachs asks on the name change. So let's read through the episode of the name change, and then we will list those questions. So beginning with the first source here. Actually, let's we're going to skip that for now and go to the actual name change in source number 2 and 3, and then we'll come back to source 1. So we are familiar with the scene. We actually spoke about it last week when we were comparing the dream of Yaakov and the ladder to the episode of the angel and wrestling with the angel, and we noted, almost a dozen similarities or parallels between those 2 episodes. and how Yaakov was able to find God, surprisingly so, in moments of overwhelm and crisis. The aftermath of the wrestling match with the angel is a name change. So here in source number 2, Vayomer Lo Yaakov Ye'amer Od Shimcha. So Hashem, or we could really say the angel, to be more specific, is telling Yaakov that your name will not be Yaakov anymore, Ki im Israel, but rather it should be Israel. Why? Ki sarita im Elokim v'im anashim v'tuchal. 2 reasons given. The first is that you have, the word sarita can mean several different things. Here, the translation, the JPS translation, is that you have struggled or you have striven with God, right? If God was represented by the angel in the wrestling match, then Yaakov struggled with Hashem directly or through the angel at least, and then overcame. V'imanashim v'tuchal, and also with people and overcame. So who are the people that are being referred to that Yaakov struggled with and persevered?
Laban?
Okay, good. So Lavan is one option. Who else?
Esau.
Okay, good. So it could be that there is some overlap between the wrestling match with this angel and the brother of Yaakov, Esav. Right? There seems to be anashim in the plural, so there are many men, right? So it could be Lavan and Esav. And when did he struggle with each of them? So Lavan, he had just come from, literally negotiating with Lavan for his back pay. And with Esav, when did he wrestle with Esav?
20 years before.
In the womb. Right?
Yeah.
Going back to the pregnancy of Rivka is the first instance, but indeed he wrestled with him, maybe not physically, but at least with words, when he negotiated the sale of the birthright. And then in the aftermath of getting the brachot from Yitzchak, Yaakov and Esav also have a little bit of a duel, or we could say more specifically, Yaakov flees from Esav. So there was still some sort of perseverance, right, that he had to survive Esav's wrath. But the actual encounter between them has not yet happened. That happens in the next scene. The reconciliation where they hug and they kiss, right? So that can't be what this is referring to.
Rabbi, I read that Esau said, "I'm going to kill you when our father dies." Have you heard of that?
That's a midrash. It's not in the text of the Torah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the midrash, this is a point that we're gonna make. We can make it now. The midrash vilifies Esav and glorifies Yaakov. But the actual pshat of the text itself makes both of these characters much more nuanced and complex. And Rabbi Sachs posits, he actually quotes from the Mahari Chias, that the Midrash had a particular objective in trying to make Esav and Yaakov sort of a black and white kind of personality types. And it was for pedagogical reasons. It was much easier to justify why Yaakov was chosen and Esav was cast aside if one was good and the other was evil. But it's unfair to at least the straightforward meaning of the text to insert those categorical, sort of judgments when they don't necessarily, emerge directly from the text, but sort of serve more of an educational or ideological function. So we're gonna see a little bit about about that dynamic as we examine the name change. So the first question that that we want to pose on this name change is why is Yaakov called Yaakov even after the name change? If the name change is meant to be permanent. The text itself says, Lo Yaakov ye'amer od shimcha. Yaakov should no longer be the name that you are called, Ki'im Yisrael. It should be Yisrael. And this is distinct from, Avraham and Sarah. When they were Avram and Sarai and their names were changed, there's no going back. The Torah makes the shift and is consistent from that point forward. Whereas the name of Yaakov being switched to Yisrael seems to be only on paper. Or we could say, only sort of, let's say legally, but not practically, because he was still continued to be called Yaakov even after this juncture. Okay, so that's question number one. The second question is, why did Yaakov's name have to be completely transformed instead of being modified, like Avram and Sarai's name? Right? If the point was to give him an upgrade, then add Hashem's name, make it Yaakova. Just like Avram and Sarai got an upgrade by adding Hashem's name to their name. Right? Why is it necessary for the angel to replace Yaakov's name completely? Okay, that's question number 2. Question number 3 has to do with the repetition of this episode. Yaakov is not renamed Yisrael once, but twice. Later on in the Parsha, after the episode of Dinah and Shechem, Hashem tells Yaakov to go to Beit El. And then we read in source number 3 here. Anyone want to read this one in English for us? Okay, go ahead, Janice.
Okay. God appeared again to Jacob on his arrival from Padan Aram. God blessed him, saying to him, "You, whose name is Jacob, you shall be called Jacob no more, but Israel shall be your name." Thus he was named Israel.
So quite similar to what we read in source 3, in source 2, excuse me, right? Almost word for word. The Lo Yikare Shimcha Od Yaakov, right? The words are in a bit of a different order, but the Ki'im Yisrael is the same, right? So why is there a need for repeating this renaming?
Rabbi, in this case, I think this is probably the easiest one of the 3 questions, because the same thing happened with his father, Yitzchak. Remember, the angels told Abraham, "You're going to have a son, and you're going to call him Yitzchak." But then after Sarah left, they also said, "And you're going to have a son, and he's going to be called Yitzchak." So they said it twice. So that one was also twice. And so this is also twice. So there's a precedent for saying it twice. So that part is the other 2 questions I think are still, out on the table, but there is a precedent for giving the name twice.
Nothing personal, but I'm not comfortable with that answer. I don't think it answers the question.
No,
Yeah.
it's just an analogy. or-
It says that it's been done before, but doesn't give a justification. Just because something has happened already doesn't explain why either one of them had to be done twice. Right?
Rabbi, maybe Yaakov needed to hear it twice.
Okay, so that's, perhaps he didn't internalize it the first time.
Yeah.
So let's look at the Radak of David Kimchi, who answers some of these questions. So firstly, in source number 4, he says Lo Yaakov, when it says that Lo Yaakov Yomer Shimcha, that your name should not be Yaakov. The Radak says Livado, that your name should not only be Yaakov anymore. Meaning to say that the pasuk is indicating to Yaakov that he is gaining an additional name, not replacing.
The wording could have had one little extra word in there to have really explicitly said not only.
Yeah, so that's why this is a bit forced, right? I think the Radak, he brings another example or two where this phrase of, lo something doesn't mean not exclusively, but means not only, right? So there are other times where the word only is implicit and not explicit, but I think Danny's pushback is legitimate in that if it really meant that, it should have said that. But that at least is an attempt, to try and understand why people continued to call him Yaakov even after he was named Yisrael. But we're going to get better than that. That's just sort of a attempt number 1.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
who's calling him the two names throughout the parsha? Is
Good.
it God or is it other human beings?
Great. So that's a great question, Janice. And the Radak is going to pick up on that in terms of explaining why is it that it needed to be repeated twice.
Okay.
So the next comment of the Radak, first he cites the machloket in the Midrash about whether Yisrael was a replacement name or an additional name. So there is sort of other voices that claim that Yaakov retained his original name and just had like an additional name, which is why there might be an argument to add the word only in there. And then the Radak continues, and I'll read it in the Hebrew and translate, Masha Amar lo Hamalach lo Yaakov Ya'amer od Shimcha, who gave Yaakov the new name in the episode after the wrestling match? It was the angel.
Yeah.
Okay, Besura hi she basru shakadosh baruch hu yikarei shemo Yisrael. The announcement was by the angel that God will call you Yisrael, indicating that it hasn't happened yet, but it is still yet to come. Okay, v'chein asa beBeit El, and that's what happened in Beit El, where the communication is not from the angel to Yaakov, it's from God himself to Yaakov. Lefichach amar sham vayikra shemo Yisrael. That's when the official declaration was made to Yaakov by God that his name would no longer be Yaakov, but would be Israel. So the name change didn't happen by the Malach. The Malach just explained why the new name would be happening and gave a reason behind it because of the experiences that Yaakov had in his life, that he wrestled with God and wrestled with other people, and he persevered. That explains why it is that it's appropriate to gain a new title after that magnificent accomplishment. But that doesn't actually certify or officially mark the name change, right? That only happens when God declares it so. So that's the reason why, according to the Radak at least, there needs to be two instances in which Yaakov is renamed, because the first time is only a prediction or a sort of promise of what will eventually be, and the second one is the deliverance or the delivery of that on that promise.
That's pretty good.
Better.
That's a little better. Yeah. Okay. Now we're gonna go to Rabbi Sachs's commentary here about why, to answer some of these questions about why Yaakov had to have a completely new name, and why he was still called Yaakov even after that new name came. So Rabbi Sachs begins by saying that Yaakov was born holding on to the heel of Esav. And that posture of wanting to be like his brother Yaakov, like his brother Esav, stays with Yaakov for a long, long time. Why does it stay with him for a long time? Ultimately, Yaakov has the desire to be somebody else. He has the desire to have what Esav has, right? This is sort of a classic case of sibling rivalry, where Yaakov wants the gifts or the attention or the talents of his brother, not because of the worthiness of them per se, but because of the attention or because of the fact that Esav has them, right? So we could say it in two ways. That Yaakov is jealous of his brother Esav because of the sibling rivalry, and more sort of significantly, that the reason why he wants those attributes of Esav is because he wants his father's love. What he's chasing is not just his brother's attributes, but we know that from a few weeks ago when we saw that Rivka loves Yaakov and Yitzchak loves Esav because Esav could hunt and feed him, and Esav pampered him and honored him and took care of him, right? And so maybe Yaakov wanted some of those talents so that he could get the attention and the affection and the love of his father. But all of that changed in the great wrestling match between Yaakov and the unknown stranger. That was when he was told that his name would now be Israel. And the stated explanation of this is, for you have wrestled with Hashem and with men, and you have prevailed. But it also, or another way of understanding the reason for this, is that the word sarita, ki sarita im Elohim, doesn't only mean prevail. It can also mean yashar, right? Which means upright, which contrasts with Yaakov's name, which means crooked right? Yaakov can mean heel, and it can also mean something which is not centered, something which is twisted, something which is crooked, right? Yashar is straight, and Yaakov is crooked. So there is a sharp, contrast here that Yaakov is going through this character metamorphosis from being someone who is crookedly trying to follow or to win over his father by being like his brother, to being his own man who does what's upright, and that which is full of integrity and righteousness for his own identity, for its own good, not just as a means to an end, but as an end in its own right. And so when Yaakov is renamed, the renaming is a challenge or an invitation, and we shouldn't read it as you will no longer be called Yaakov, but rather as let your name no longer be Yaakov. You should no longer live a life of crookedness, of twistedness, but act in a way that people will call you an upright, straight person, right? Be yourself. Don't try to be someone else. And here I'll just read a paragraph from Rabbi Sachs, which connects back to the point I made at the very beginning about how this speaks to our moment in time, where often Jews, he says, have been content to be themselves. But from time to time, they have come into contact with a civilization whose intellectual, cultural, and even spiritual sophistication was undeniable. It made them feel awkward, inferior, like a villager who comes to a city for the first time. Jews lapsed into the condition of Yaakov. They wanted to be somebody else. He brings an example from Yechezkel, where the people say they want to be like their neighbors. We hear it again in the days of the Greeks when Jews become Hellenized and their names change to Greek names. It happened again during the Enlightenment when Jews fell in love with European culture, with philosophers and musicians and artists. Some were able to integrate this with faithfulness to Judaism as creed. Figures like Rabbi Hirsch, but many did not. They left the fold. They changed their names. They hid their identity. None of us is entitled to be critical of what they did. The combined impact of intellectual challenge, social change, and incendiary anti-Semitism was immense. Yet this was a Jacob response, not an Israel one. It is happening today in large swaths of the Jewish world. Jews have overachieved. Judaism, with some notable exceptions, have underachieved. There are Jews at or near the top of almost every field of human endeavor today, but all too many have either abandoned their religious heritage or are indifferent to it. For them, being Jewish is a slender ethnicity, too thin to be transmitted to the future, too hollow to inspire. So the fact that the Torah and tradition, use the word Yaakov, not just Israel, tells us that the problem has not disappeared. So this is Rabbi Sachs's sort of homiletical explanation for why it is that Yaakov is still called Yaakov and not Yisrael. Because even though God tells him you should be your own man, you shouldn't be defined by other people. You shouldn't be defined by fitting in. You should be proud about who you are and your ethical values, and not be looking over your shoulder. But Yaakov struggles with that. And the changing of the name is more of an invitation and a challenge for Yaakov to lead his life in a Yisrael fashion, but Yaakov slips and he reverts back to old habits and old ways. It's not so easy to just have a complete name change and a complete flip of identity.
Mhm.
That's what was intended by completely changing the name. Whereas Abraham and Sarah had a modification of their name because it was meant to be somewhat continuous with what they had done before. Yaakov was invited to have a complete personality shift
Mm,
from, comparing himself to others to just being his own man.
mm.
But even God calls him Yaakov because he sees that Yaakov isn't really able to do that. There are a few other instances where he's called Yisrael, but for the most part, even at the end of his life, he's called Yaakov because fundamental to who he is this sort of wanting to be fit in, to assimilate, to get the attention of others. Right? It's human nature to want that. But ultimately, we're called Bnei Yisrael. We're not called Bnei Yaakov.
Mm.
And the reason for that is because we are meant to be who we are and to live our lives loud and proud without worrying too much about what they say or what will they think, right? And here is where we come sort of full circle back to some of the anti-Semitic and anti-Jewish stuff that's going on. They're starting to win when Judaism becomes about anti-Semitism. And we talk about anti-Semitism more than we talk about Torah.
Mm. Mhm.
And when that happens, they've won and we've lost because we're Yaakov. We're just trying to please them. We're just trying to fit in. We're just holding on to the heel of society to say, don't forget about us. Don't step on us. Don't trample us.
Mm.
But Yisrael has rectitude. Yisrael has strength. Yisrael has fortitude to say, this is us, and we're going straight ahead. And so that's some of the marching orders that Rabbi Sachs gives from our parsha. He concludes by saying that the challenge issued by the angel still echoes today. Are we, Jacob, embarrassed by who we are, trying to be like others, trying to fit in? Or are we Israel, with the courage to stand upright and walk tall in the path of faith?
Mm.
Very
So
good.
true.
So, Rabbi, on a lighter note,
Yeah.
your in-laws were in a 6-year medical school program with 2 brothers. The older one's name was Max, and his brother a year younger was Israel. They were in the medical program together, and Max
Witnesses.
always called his brother Jake.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, ask your parents, Wisdom boys. They're both they both are very high in their field. Max became a pediatric neurologist in Chicago, and Israel is in Florida now. He's some sort of a surgeon, and he's very serious and everything. But I met him because he's a neighbor of my son's machatana. And he remembered me after like over 40 years. But yeah, Max always calls brother Israel Jake.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I was thinking about the head of Metaverse who, intermarried. I don't know if he's speaking out about anti-Semitism, but Natalie Portman is. She's an Israeli actress. So, I mean, we need prominent people to speak out, Jewish and non-Jewish. But as you say, we shouldn't spend too much time on it because it gives credence to it.
It's not a good rallying cry. If we're asking our celebrities and our influencers to talk about anti-Semitism instead of keeping Shabbos, then we're in a bad place, because people will not generate proud, strong identity from anti-Semitism. They'll run away from observance.
Mhm. But some people say that, and I hate this reason, that when we're persecuted, we tend to stay together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that reason for staying together.
Yeah, historically it's true, but we live in a different moment in American, Judaism, where there's so much that divides the Jewish community, that anti-Semitism might bring some groups within the Jewish community closer together, but many groups will just walk.
Mm.
And anti-Semitism, pushes assimilation.
Yeah.
What are you suggesting?
It's a good question that I don't have a great answer for, because most of the strategies that have been tried have not worked.
But Rabbi, assimilation has happened when we've been in good times without overt anti-Semitism. It just, assimilation happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
My main suggestion, is that we are watchful and that we talk about anti-Semitism a little bit, but that we're not paranoid and we don't talk about it too much. This is within the Orthodox community.
Yeah, what's interesting is some of the most recent incidents in Massachusetts are not in Sharon and in Brookline, but in Stowe, in Dartmouth, in places where there've been anti-Semitic graffiti and whatever, where Jews are really truly in a minority, and those that are there are basically assimilated. Whereas when you show an obvious strong adherence to Jewish laws and principles and things, like you wear the kippah when you go to pick up the TV, and you do that sort of thing. I think for the wider population, it actually engenders more respect when you're true to who you are than when you're like hiding it or being assimilated. So the answer is to be more observant and more, keeping Shabbos and doing things, not to hide it and to try to fit in.
Yeah, that's what Jake Auchincloss, who's our representative in the House of Representatives, said on Sunday. Our shul and 5 or 6 other Orthodox shuls in Massachusetts hosted him on Sunday morning for a talk in Newton, and that was exactly the point that he made, which I was trying to say, but you said it better, Amy, which is that the best way to counteract the misinformation of the anti-Semites is to be strong, proud Jews, because the principles and the values and the personality of good, strong Jews carries itself. What the problem is that the caricatures and the misrepresentation of Jews has spread to people who are so ignorant that you can't blame them for hating Jews if that's what they think Jews are. So to correct that by living a life which shows them that that's not true, is the way, there was this show on Netflix, The Tinder Swindler, I think, something like that, about an Israeli guy who, tricks women into, loving him, and he steals all their money, right? And it was like a top show on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what generates anti-Semitism. When there are Jewish, scientists who are working on all sorts of cures for cancer and, donating generously to a whole host of causes locally and nationally, right? That's what combats anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Right.
So I still don't have a clear path, but I believe that this is, some of what should guide us.
Yeah, but 22 years ago, we did have some anti-Semitic outbreaks in Sharon. The brick was thrown through Temple Sinai, and the Stoughton JCC had graffiti on it.
Yeah, there have been other small incidences, more recently as well, and so we have to be vigilant in terms of our safety and our physical security. We can't be naive. So that's why we have, what we have in shul and schools and all of that.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or points about this reflection about the Parsha and Yaakov's name being changed aspirationally to Israel? Is that something that he should try to be, even though it's very hard for him to do it?
Does he even know what Yisrael means?
Well, that's what kisarita im Elokim v'im anashim, that you have, had Israel, means you have been straight, you have had courage and rectitude with people like Lavan and Esav, right? Lavan, who was the ultimate swindler, right? Yaakov had integrity, and that's why he became deserving of his name as being someone who was truthful and honest.
Well, it all goes back to the brachot that Yitzhak gave to the two sons. I mean, he said the younger one will rule over the older one. However, if the younger one misbehaves or abuses his office, does whatever, then the older one will rule over him. So it's, even though it was the struggle and he did come out upright, he's still struggling. And at times, when Jews don't live up to where they should be, then they go back to Yaakov, that Israel is the aspiration, but it's not an end in itself. You constantly have to struggle to get there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I heard an interesting interpretation that Jacob was holding the heel of Esau to hold back his negative characteristics, his instincts.
To hold back Esav's.
Yes, to try
He
to
was trying to
contain
restrain
him in some
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Yep. So this is a different take, that
Yeah, I know.
Yaakov was trying to be like his brother and
Right.
wanted the love of his father, and thought the only way to get it was to being a bit crooked, because that's how Esav seemed to get it.
Well, he did actually impersonate his brother, not the
But
other way
his mother
around.
told him to do it, and supposedly, it's because God told.
Yeah, so that gets into a whole nother chapter. But
Yeah.
Yaakov goes along with it, right? He's willing to be like his brother, and maybe secretly he's enjoying it. He enjoys the attention, right? This is secretly what he actually wanted his whole life. So it provides sort of a new lens into these different narratives in terms of seeing Yaakov as somebody who is a wannabe until he's able to eventually be himself and carry his own identity, loud and proud.
And that's part of what some anti-Semites say, that Jews they're not straight and open and honest. They find these little devious ways to get around things and to sneak in and to be bent over. And that's one of the things that some anti-Semites point to is, they snuck in, or they did this. They weren't straight and open and straightforward. So that's where we have to be very careful that we are straight and open and honest, and that we're not devious.
Yep.
But younger siblings always look up to the older ones. They want to be like them, even though there's only a minute or two in between Yaakov and Esau. But
yeah,
it's a normal feeling.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for sharing your insights and for making our parsha relevant to our times together. Wish everyone a wonderful rest of the day.
Yes.
A good week.
Yeah.
Good week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Will we be going right through December? Do you foresee, or?
Yeah, the last week in December we'll take off, but yeah,
Okay.
but otherwise we'll go continuous. Okay. Take
Okay.
care. Bye.
Thank you so much today.
Okay.
Everyone.
Welcome. Bye.
Bye.